Well, there is a silent frustration brewing about an age-old practice that many say is getting out of hand: tipping. As more businesses adopt digital payment methods, customers are automatically being prompted to leave a gratuity, many times as high as 30%. For more on this, we are joined live tonight by etiquette expert Thomas Farley. Thomas, thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the program. So, to
Thank you,
tip
Lena.
or not to tip? That seems to be the big question. And it seems like most consumers in the U.S. say this is a practice that may be getting out of hand. Let's start with what you're hearing.
Sure. So I'm hearing, first of all, lots of questions. People are really genuinely confused. And I think most patrons of a business, especially if it's a local establishment, they want to be generous. They want to know that they're meeting what the norm and the expectation is. But people are feeling what I call a guilt tip, where because they know that that little screen is going to be flipped around and seen by the person who just helped them, let alone the three people standing behind them in line who are looking over their shoulder to see what they might be tipping, people are feeling pressured to tip in spots where they never were asked for a tip before.
Right, and we've all been there, right? We see that iPad and we see that person behind the counter, and it feels like they're staring at us, and we feel that pressure. Do we tip? Do we not tip? So what is the rule there? If you're picking up, let's say, food, you're picking up takeout, should you tip?
So here's my recommendation. If your means allow and you're in the mood to be generous that particular day and you're doing takeout, a spot where you know the person who's working at that cash register is making a livable minimum wage, but you're nonetheless feeling generous, I say by all means go for it. On the other hand, if you are on a little bit of a budget or you're feeling a little bit resentful of the fact that you're being asked to tip for something that somebody grabbed a water out of a refrigerator behind the cash register and now you're being expected to tip 15, 20, 25% on that, there is no requirement. Again, it's a nice to do if you are feeling that that is your spirit that day, but etiquette does not say you must tip these employees. Tipping is really reserved for those traditional types of professions: massage therapist, a server in a sit-down
Right.
restaurant, a taxi driver. There you traditionally tip. But these others that are brand new, it's really truly remains at your discretion, despite what the screen may say.
Right. So, when you're sitting down enjoying a nice meal, I'm thinking, of course, at that point you tip. That's obvious. But when you're picking up food, like you said, it seems to be an optional thing. What, in that case, would you be tipping for? What are you paying for at that point? Is that your just way of saying thank you for preparing the
Sure.
food?
So there are a few layers of scenario in being at a counter where you're taking out food. Is it that you phoned in an order for Chinese food for your family of 8, and there are napkins and utensils and a server who's made sure that every single item is in that bag for you? In that case, I would definitely tip. And this has been true since before the pandemic. It got heightened during the pandemic and now even after. So there you want to tip, I would say, a minimum of 10% on your takeout order where it's food, where it's a large quantity. If you are going to your local coffee shop and the barista there knows your name and knows your order and has it ready for you before you even step up to the cash register, and what they're doing is art, I would absolutely tip that individual. And there you're really typically only talking about a couple of dollars. The area where it's grayer is you are going to a bakery, say, and you're getting a cookie.
Right.
Someone's taking a cookie out of a case or that water out of the refrigerator behind them. In those cases, you may be faced with that screen, but I would say no obligation to tip. And you may even want to consider definitely not tipping, because I think we're rapidly coming to an age where you may be tipping your dental hygienist, you may be tipping just about every single individual you encounter throughout the day, at which point we've gone past the point of no return. And that's my concern, because then the people who really rely on those tips, they wind up getting a smaller amount of the tipping budget that we all have as consumers, particularly in an age of inflation throughout the year.
Yeah, that makes total sense. An interesting conversation for sure. Thomas Farley, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you, Lena.
Take care.